My husband's India sister tried to poison me at a party after we announced my pregnancy, but the plan failed. Now she faces prison and divorce. I'm 29 years old and have been married to my husband Harry for 7 years. I love everything about our marriage except one thing, his sister, Kayla, who brings nothing but negativity into our lives. Don't get me wrong, I used to genuinely like Kayla when I first met her. But over time, my opinion of her changed. She's incredibly manipulative, toxic, and always radiates negativity. For years, I tried not to cross her path because I understood what kind of person she was. Once, when Harry was 17, he dated Kayla's best friend, but they broke up because he felt pressured by Kayla. When he was 23 and single again, Kayla insisted he date another one of her friends, but he refused. This led to a huge argument, and she stormed off crying to complain to their parents, saying she wanted him to marry someone she would feel comfortable with. However, their parents didn't pay much attention to her tantrum. When Harry and I met and fell in love, his parents fully supported us, but Kayla was always cold towards me. She constantly brought up Harry's exes, reminiscing about how wonderful things were with them, and hinted that he should reconnect with them. This went on for a while, and even Harry found it strange, so he asked her to stop mentioning his exes. Kayla became angry and started mocking me, saying I was jealous, and that Harry shouldn't be with someone as insecure as me. Whenever his parents invited us over for dinner, Kayla would deliberately bring one of Harry's exes along, claiming she had run into them by chance and invited them out of politeness. She also constantly monitors my Instagram without following me. My account is public, so I notice that she's always the first to view my stories. If a man comments on my photos, she runs to complain to Harry, accusing me of posting inappropriate pictures. Harry and I just laugh at her accusations. When we decided to move in together, Kayla tried to convince Harry to break up with me, saying I was a terrible woman and that she would find him someone much better. This deeply hurt me because I had always been kind to her. When Harry and I got engaged, Kayla's behavior worsened. We announced our engagement, and everyone congratulated us, but I noticed Kayla was silent. Suddenly, she stood up and left the party, shocking everyone. Later, she called Harry in tears, yelling that she was upset because she wasn't the first to know about our engagement, as she considered herself the closest person to him. Afterward, she sent me a borderline threatening message, claiming I needed to be a good wife to her brother. She said she was the only woman in his life before me. The message was so bizarre it sent chills down my spine. I didn't respond and simply left it on read, which likely made her even angrier. Kayla gradually began ignoring me when she saw me, yet she continued to participate in wedding preparations, including dress shopping and the bachelorette party. Her criticism of the wedding reached a new level. She openly expressed dissatisfaction with my choices, despite my mother-in-law and Harry condemning her for it multiple times. One day, while my future mother-in-law and I were discussing decor, Kayla eavesdropped and immediately started mocking me, declaring my choices tasteless. She added that someone better than me would have made better decisions. This was the last straw. I couldn't hold it in any longer. I yelled at her, saying I couldn't tolerate her constant mockery and criticism anymore, and that she was no longer invited to our wedding. Kayla was shocked, gasping in disbelief, as if she hadn't expected me to stand up to her. Even my mother-in-law was angry with her and supported me. Later, Kayla reached out to Harry, complaining that I humiliated her and demanding that he control me since I was about to become his wife. Harry firmly told her he supported my decision, and that if she didn't apologize, she wouldn't be invited to the wedding. Through gritted teeth, she sent me an apology that was supposed to sound sincere. I saw it but once again left the message on read. I was already completely exhausted and didn't want to get involved in her dramas. In the end, she did come to our wedding because I didn't want her to gossip afterward. The wedding had a pastel pink theme, and all the guests followed this style, except Kayla, who arrived in a floor-length black dress with a veil, as if attending a funeral. We were shocked. She walked around the guests, telling everyone she was mourning the loss of her brother, who had been taken away from her. My husband noticed how uncomfortable I felt because of Kayla's outfit and decided to talk to her. She tried to play the victim, claiming she had the right to wear whatever she wanted and that I was being too controlling. In the end, her parents asked her to leave when she wouldn't stop making a scene. It was humiliating for me, and from that day on, I tried to avoid her. When I gave birth to our son, Nate, I refused to allow Kayla near our child. She tried to resist, but my husband and his parents supported me. They understood why I didn't want Kayla around our baby and respected my decision. As time went on, 2 years ago, Kayla suffered a miscarriage with her then boyfriend Jamie, which broke her. It was a difficult time for everyone. Harry and I felt sympathy, especially since we already had a child. So, after her miscarriage, we decided to be more patient with her. We invited her over so she could bond with our son, Nate, and I have to admit, she was surprisingly sweet to him despite her behavior toward me. At first, it seemed like she had changed. But over time, she reverted to her old ways. She constantly complained about how hard her life was, how nothing worked out for her, and blamed her former bosses or friends for ruining everything. Over time, I realized that in her mind, she was always right. She rarely admitted her faults and conflicts and constantly tried to gain support by playing the victim. This year, Kayla decided to get married and invited everyone, except us. Harry was shocked to learn we weren't invited, especially since it seemed like our relationship with her had improved. When we asked her about it, she said she couldn't invite me because I might ruin her wedding. I called her and asked why she thought that since I had never done anything like that. Kayla replied that she had deliberately worn black to our wedding and was now afraid I might do the same at hers, so she didn't want to see me there. I was furious at her manipulation and immediately told my husband everything. Harry spoke with his parents, and they decided to tell Kayla they wouldn't pay for her wedding or attend it. This brought Kayla to tears, and she started blaming me for creating the situation. My husband told her that she had admitted to her own mistake, so she had no right to blame me. However, Kayla tried to justify herself, claiming our wedding was a long time ago and that it was time to forget about it. Later, when her parents still refused to pay for her wedding, she began asking me for forgiveness. I'll admit, Kayla can be very sweet and convincing when she needs something. I forgave her and decided to leave the past behind. Her wedding to Jamie went well, and we all attended and had a great time. But just 6 months later, Kayla showed up at our doorstep, complaining that her marriage was falling apart. We allowed her to stay with us for a few days, and during that time, she spent hours complaining about Jamie. They had issues with conceiving a child, and Kayla clearly blamed Jamie for everything. I tried to talk to her, but she was convinced it was all his fault. When she wasn't complaining about Jamie, she was obsessed with our lives, making up things that weren't true. For instance, I usually go to the gym every morning before work. Sometimes, if I'm running late, I bring my work clothes with me to shower and change there. Kayla noticed this and started asking a lot of questions, like why I showered or why I went to the gym at all. I didn't pay much attention and explained that I liked staying fit and didn't want to show up to work sweaty. She pursed her lips and nodded. Eventually, her relationship with Jamie improved, and she went back to him. One weekend, my husband and I went to have lunch with his parents. Kayla and Jamie were also invited. We left our son Nate with a nanny, as he usually gets bored when adults talk for long periods and prefers to stay home and play. During the lunch, my mother-in-law told us about her friend who recently divorced. She spoke about how her friend's husband had cheated on her, so she left and took half of the property. Suddenly, Kayla interrupted to ask my husband if we had signed a prenuptial agreement before our wedding. We stopped eating and looked at her. She acted as if I wasn't even there, staring at my husband, waiting for an answer. My husband, not one to mince words, bluntly said that since we both earn enough, we didn't see the need for a prenup. Kayla smirked and started saying that there are too many infidelities these days, and that he could be deceived at any moment. I took her words as a personal insult and asked her to explain what exactly she meant. Kayla began claiming that I was probably seeing someone on the side, since I always carried a change of clothes with me. She said that, as his sister, it was her duty to warn him. I was shocked by her words. My father-in-law and mother-in-law immediately came to my defense and sharply told her to stop making things up and stay out of other people's business. Kayla, not wasting a second, continued insisting that she was just trying to look out for her brother. Then she joked about whether Nate was really Harry's son, claiming he didn't look much like him. I swear, I saw Harry's face turn crimson with rage. I had never seen him so furious in my life. He looked Kayla straight in the eye and said that this was exactly why she wasn't a mother, because she didn't deserve to be. He added that her child was better off in heaven than with someone like her. Kayla froze, her mouth agape. My father-in-law and mother-in-law just sat silently as Harry yelled at Kayla, calling her a shameless person who tries to destroy everything around her just because there's nothing good in her own life. He continued, saying she was a pathetic failure who spent her days doing nothing while her husband worked hard. He added that instead of pointing fingers at me and questioning prenuptial agreements, she should worry about her own marriage, since she was clearly projecting her problems onto others. Kayla started crying. She looked at Jamie, who sat next to her, hoping for support, but he didn't react. I had never seen my husband lose his temper like that. Eventually, Kayla got up and ran to the bathroom. My husband was still fuming, and my mother-in-law went over to calm him down while I gently stroked his arm. He said how sorry he was that his sister had said such horrible things about our son. I nodded because I understood just how infuriating she could be. I was glad my husband had finally stood up for me publicly after all these years of enduring Kayla's antics. Once he calmed down, he apologized to Jamie, but completely ignored Kayla. After lunch, we cut off all communication with her. Her behavior was affecting not just me, but also my husband. We blocked her everywhere, so she couldn't contact us. My father-in-law and mother-in-law talked to us about that lunch and agreed that Kayla had gone too far this time. They saw how their usually calm son had lost his temper after her constant provocations. It's been a year since we last spoke to her, and everything has been smooth. 2 months ago, I found out I was pregnant. It was a complete surprise, since we weren't even trying. My husband and I were overjoyed about having another child. We waited for the right moment to announce it, and decided to do so at my husband's birthday party. My father-in-law and mother-in-law wanted to host a big celebration in Harry's honor, so they organized a large gathering in their backyard with close friends and family. Apparently, Kayla found out about it from someone and decided to show up. When we saw her, my husband and I were stunned. Kayla approached and hugged Harry, saying how much she missed him and how sorry she was for their last conversation. Harry took my hand and told his sister that she needed to apologize to me for questioning my reputation. Kayla nodded, turned to me, and apologized. She said she had been attending therapy for the past few months and realized how wrong it was to humiliate me. I didn't believe a word she said but didn't want to create a scene in front of everyone, so I just nodded. My mother-in-law and father-in-law came over to check if we were okay and assured us they hadn't known she would come. They also said that if we felt uncomfortable, they would make her leave since this was Harry's day. But Harry didn't want to create a scene, so we decided to leave things as they were. Throughout the party, I noticed Kayla laughing and chatting with every guest, which seemed quite odd. She appeared overly cheerful, which was very unlike her. However, she mentioned attending therapy, so I decided to give her the benefit of the doubt. When it was time to cut the cake, Harry gave a heartfelt speech about how he considered himself the luckiest man alive, and how grateful he was for another year of life with such a wonderful wife. His words made me blush with happiness. I couldn't help but appreciate that we were still so in love, just like when we first met. Then, Harry and I decided to share our exciting news with the guests. Smiling brightly, we announced that we were expecting a baby. For a moment, everyone fell silent, then the room erupted in joyful cheers. My mom cried and came over to hug me, and my father-in-law couldn't hold back his tears as he congratulated us. Everyone was overjoyed and enthusiastically asked if we had already thought of a name for the baby. The only person who stood out was Kayla. She looked stunned. I thought she was just processing the news, but then her expression changed, and she walked away, visibly irritated. I worried she might ruin another of our celebrations, but was quickly distracted by other guests approaching me. When it was time for dinner, I wanted to help my in-laws serve the food, but they insisted I stay seated, saying I shouldn't exert myself. I sat calmly, waiting for my husband to bring me a plate, when Kayla suddenly approached me with a beaming smile. She held a plate of food and loudly announced that she wanted to personally hand it to me because she was so happy about my pregnancy. As she handed me the plate, she even commented that she wanted to make amends for her past rudeness. I nodded and thanked her, and then she walked away. Just as I was about to eat, I noticed the plate had shrimp. Everyone in my family knows I have a severe allergy to shrimp, so I was shocked that Kayla had given it to me. Disappointed, I shook my head and got up to grab another plate. At that moment, Jamie approached to congratulate me on the pregnancy. We chatted briefly, and he asked why I wasn't eating. I explained that Kayla had likely given me shrimp by mistake. Jamie told me not to worry, took the plate, and said he loved shrimp and would happily eat it. I smiled, nodded, and went to get another plate. Not even 5 minutes later, Jamie started vomiting and coughing violently. Everyone stopped eating and watched in alarm as he struggled to stand. Harry and Kayla rushed to him in concern. Jamie pointed to his plate and then his throat. We realized something was seriously wrong with what he had eaten. Jamie then collapsed, and everyone gasped in shock. Kayla ran to his plate, her eyes widening in horror. She turned to me and asked if I had given him that plate. I nodded. Amid the chaos, someone called an ambulance, and Jamie was rushed to the hospital. Kayla couldn't stop crying and kept casting angry glances at me. Later, we were informed that Jamie had been poisoned. Hearing this, I nearly fainted because, unlike everyone else, I realized that plate had been meant for me. What poisoned Jamie could have harmed me and my unborn baby? Harry, my in-laws, and my parents don't know this yet. The police were called to collect the food Jamie ate as evidence, since no one knew what in it could have caused his condition. As I write this, Jamie is still recovering in the hospital, and Kayla stayed with him overnight. Harry and I are taking calls from relatives asking what happened to Jamie, and who could have poisoned him. My in-laws are staying with us too, as they're afraid to go home after everything that's happened. No one understands how things could go so wrong when everything seemed fine. I'm terrified of telling everyone that the plate was originally meant for me and that Kayla personally gave it to me. If an investigation begins, I'll have to tell the police the truth. I feel incredibly guilty about what happened, but most importantly, I'm scared of what Kayla might be capable of doing to me. She clearly has no boundaries if she truly tried to poison me. I don't want her near me or my children ever again. So, am I the fool for giving my plate to Jamie and potentially poisoning my brother-in-law? Share your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Harry's parents are right to fully support him against his sister? Was Harry justified in being so harsh with Kayla? Update 1. My hands were trembling as I wrote this. I couldn't sleep that night. Despite all the words of support directed at me, I still feel partially responsible for what happened to Jamie. I should have just thrown away the plate. I don't know why I let him take it. I keep crying, thinking about what could have happened to him. My husband knows something is wrong and is constantly by my side. He thinks I'm just worried, but doesn't know what I suspect about his sister. I agree that I need to sit down and calmly talk to everyone. I don't know if they'll believe me, but my in-laws have security cameras all over their yard, and since the party took place there, I'm sure they can verify the footage showing Kayla handing me that plate. I'll speak with everyone tonight, and will update you on what happens. Update 2. We had the conversation, and I'm incredibly grateful to have the best in-laws in the world. Since they were staying with us, I sat down with them and Harry over dinner to discuss something important. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the situation, and recounted the events of the birthday party. I explained how Kayla gave me a plate of shrimp, knowing I'm severely allergic, and how Jamie unknowingly ate from it, leading to his poisoning. As I spoke, their faces displayed shock and disbelief, echoing what was swirling in my own mind. My in-laws exchanged worried glances, and Harry's expression shifted from confusion to anger. I expressed my fears about Kayla's motives and her past attempts to harm me. I admitted that I had hesitated for a long time before saying anything, afraid of the consequences for myself and our unborn child. My mother-in-law, being a practical woman, immediately suggested checking the security camera footage. My father-in-law agreed, understanding the seriousness of the situation. Harry, though visibly upset, remained silent, processing the shocking revelation. When we reviewed the footage, the truth became undeniable. The video clearly showed Kayla handing me the poisoned plate, followed by the events that ensued. The evidence left no room for doubt. The emotions were overwhelming. Harry, now fully grasping his sister's sinister intentions, barely contained his rage. My in-laws were devastated by their daughter's actions and shocked at how far she had gone to create chaos. We sat in stunned silence, trying to comprehend why she would do such a thing. My in-laws decided to hand the evidence over to the police, as this was a very serious matter. My father-in-law and Harry planned to meet with Jamie once he recovered, as he would need to press charges against Kayla. I don't know how Jamie will react, and I feel like crying every time I think about how I allowed him to eat from my poisoned plate. I can't sleep or eat properly because I'm so worried about him. I'll update you as soon as there are significant developments. Update 3. It's been a month since my last update, and as a pregnant woman dealing with a lot, I appreciate your patience. First, my in-laws handed the footage to the police. After reviewing the evidence, Kayla was arrested. She didn't even deny the accusations. She immediately broke down and confessed. My husband spoke to Jamie about what happened, and he was as shocked as the rest of us. Harry strongly advised him to press charges against his wife, assuring him that regardless of his decision, Jamie would always be part of our family. In the end, after recovering, Jamie not only decided to sue Kayla, but also filed for divorce. Kayla called my in-laws, crying and begging for forgiveness. It turned out that Kayla herself is pregnant. She tried to manipulate them, saying they needed to help her for the sake of their future grandchild. But my father-in-law firmly stated that they would no longer enable her behavior, and that it was time for her to take responsibility for her actions. My mother-in-law, though deeply upset for her daughter, acknowledged that Kayla's actions couldn't be forgiven. The police confirmed that Kayla had indeed laced the food with something harmful, intending to hurt me. It backfired, leading to Jamie's poisoning instead. Kayla now faces multiple charges, including intentional harm through food, endangerment of life, and causing bodily harm. She's begging Jamie not to press charges, claiming it's all my fault. Thankfully, Jamie disagrees and is determined to see her face justice. The trial will begin soon, and I doubt she will avoid punishment this time. As for me and my son, we're safe. He doesn't know what his aunt did. Harry and I have decided that when the time comes, we'll sit him down and explain everything. It's an important conversation, though it won't be easy. I'm also undergoing regular ultrasounds every 2 weeks, as recommended by my doctor. We don't plan to find out the baby's gender. We want it to be a surprise. My parents, now fully aware of what happened, have been incredibly supportive. They're urging me to see a psychologist to cope with the psychological toll. I agree with them, as I've developed a deep fear of eating anything I didn't prepare myself. Harry understands my fear and supports me every step of the way. Update 4. 8 months have passed. Kayla is now serving her prison sentence after being found guilty on all charges. I didn't attend the trial, but my in-laws did. They told me Kayla confessed in court that she had been jealous of me for years. She never wanted her brother to marry an outsider, and had always dreamed of marrying him off to one of her friends. When we announced my pregnancy at Harry's birthday party, she was overwhelmed with anger. She admitted that she had planned to announce her own pregnancy that day. Having suffered a miscarriage earlier, she wanted to share her happy news but felt we stole her moment. According to her, pregnancy hormones fueled her anger, leading her to sprinkle a small amount of poison into my food. She claimed she only intended to send me to the hospital and didn't plan to harm me or the baby. She said she never expected me to give the plate to Jamie and blamed me for poisoning her husband. Unsurprisingly, the judge didn't accept her excuses, and she was sentenced to prison. Jamie has successfully divorced her and is now free. We've met with him a few times and continue to invite him to family events whenever possible. I've apologized to Jamie repeatedly for giving him my plate, but he assures me I'm not to blame. Recently, we welcomed a baby girl into our family. Despite the shadows of the past, her arrival brought warmth and light to our lives. Our son Nate is thrilled to be a big brother, showering his sister with love and care. We feel immense joy watching our children bond, and our hearts are filled with love. Thank you for following our story to the end. What do you think about all of this? Why do you think Kayla behaved so maliciously? Was it jealousy or a need for control? Share your thoughts in the comments.